Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show, highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyles, community, and neighborhood. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Our house.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show All Things Moore County. If you live under a rock and you never heard that song, we're going to be talking a little bit about it today. That was the theme music from Footloose, which a lot of people will remember, Kevin Bacon and John Lithgow. A very iconic movie at a time when the generations were growing and there was a lot of parental guidance and the religious aspect, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. And so, Dorothy, you might say, why are we talking about Footloose?
Because I think we got somebody in the house who's got Footloose going on.
Well, we do. Peggy Taphorn is with us today, and choreographer Jacob Toth. We're going to be speaking all about the Temple Theater today and their 10th anniversary season. We're at the cusp of the 2017-2018 season, and Peggy has always been a bright light on the show. Every time she comes in, I think I should just give her my seat and leave.
Yes.
And let her just completely take over. Peggy, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And Jacob, you're down from New York?
I am. I'm back down to help Peggy out with Footloose the musical.
So, you're 20, this is 10 years.
It's 10 years for me. It's actually the Temple Theater, since it had its renaissance in the mid-'80s, it's actually the Temple's 34th season of being a professional theater down in Sanford. But it is my 10th year here, so we're calling it the Pegiversary season.
The 10 years have gone like a minute, haven't they?
They really have. It's been a wonderful ride, and actually Footloose was the second year that I was here. We did it in 2008. And for this season, we took an audience poll for their favorite shows of the past 10 years, 9 years actually. And Footloose and another of the shows that's coming up later this year, The Odd Couple, were 2 of their top picks. So that's how we decided on these 2 shows.
I have to remember, if you go back 10 years, if everybody goes back 10 years and they think about where we were with our economy, at the time you made a decision to get involved in local theater, everything was stacked against you.
Well, actually, in 2007, when I was doing the demographic research and everything, a lot of the growth and a lot of the financial movement was going to be happening in our area, in Lee County, in Moore County, in Wake and Chatham County, and then 2008 happened.
Right.
So when I got here, I felt like we were, especially Sanford in particular, was sort of on the cusp of turning into something else, and then that hit the brakes when 2008 happened. And now, Bill, I honestly feel like that energy and that positivity and that sort of economic boon is sort of happening again. I feel the inkling of it. We've seen the light at the tunnel the last couple of years,
right?
But this year in particular,
right.
Sanford did a $9 million streetscape renovation, so downtown Sanford looks quite different than it did when I moved here in 2007.
Right.
And I really feel like this whole area is you know better than most. It seems like homes are selling now. There's new home building happening that we haven't seen in years.
A lot of growth.
So there's a lot of growth happening. So I'm really excited about what's in our future. Yeah,
there's a lot of migration. A lot of it's military. A lot of it are retired people. But as we get older, people are moving further south.
That's right.
And I'll tell you, I was just in New York City this past weekend visiting my sisters, and as much as you don't need a car in New York, you can live on a block and live within 2 blocks of where you live and get everything done.
Absolutely.
In your neighborhood. And Jake, where do you live in New York?
I'm actually in Weehawken, New Jersey now, but when I lived in this city, my last apartment was down in Greenwich Village, and like you said, you could
never
not leave the village ever and be fine.
And
fine. People do that. People get very neighborhood-centric. And like to go from the west side to the east side, that's, forget it. I'm not traveling those 15 minutes. I've got everything I need right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You have 7 productions on tap for the season.
Yes.
Footloose starts when?
Footloose starts on September 14th.
It's a Thursday night.
That's right. And our official opening night, if you want to come for the champagne toast and to meet and greet the cast, we have the Steel Pig restaurant is providing food for opening night, which the audience can partake of before the show. That happens on the Friday night, September 15th. And then this one runs through October 1st.
Okay. For people who know you, they think that you're like the Energizer Bunny, that you never, ever, ever take a day off. But I can tell you, as by virtue of Facebook, I did see that you did take a vacation, I guess, in between seasons for a week or two.
Well, I actually call it my working vacations.
Okay.
I do, honestly, when I'm here in North Carolina, I kind of work 7 days a week and a lot of hours a day. But I do try to get away in the summers. Greta Zanster, who's been on your show before, our fabulous director of education, sort of takes over in the summers and does wonderful youth programming. And this summer we did 2 great productions of The Wizard of Oz, which actually kicks off this season with these youth productions. We had over 50 kids in each one, ages 8 to 18. We did a wonderful production of Sweeney Todd, which was teenagers. That's an audition-only advanced musical theater.
Right.
And then we did a really neat production of Hamlet, which is a combination of professional Shakespearean actors and youth. And our Hamlet was played by a young woman who's a senior in high school. Her name is Sydney Pope, and she blew me away, Bill. I don't know that I've ever seen Hamlet done as well as Sydney Pope did it this past summer.
Is that right?
So they kind of kick off the season, and so while that's happening, I go to other theaters and work there sort of as a gun for hire. This summer I directed and choreographed The Addams Family out in Portland, Oregon, which was fun.
Right.
And then I went to St. Louis and directed and choreographed a production of Rent.
Oh, wow.
So St. Louis is where I'm from originally. So when I'm there, I stay with my mom and my sister. I get to see my 17 nieces and nephews. So I kind of call that a working vacation.
Yeah.
But I also go to see how other theaters are making do these days. You know, our demographics are changing. The way you advertise is changing. So I try to go and see what's happening in other parts of the country and other theaters that I can bring back as little nuggets to say, this year we're going to try this.
I know we want to go through and talk about all the shows that are upcoming, but you just said something, you use the expression making do. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for just a minute.
Sure.
Because local theater is, we've talked about it in the past, it's a tough business.
Absolutely.
You were talking a little bit before the show about what the cost to some of the rights to some of the shows can cost you, but I have never seen it translate into absurd ticket prices. It's so affordable, and yet you are like you're a tightrope. You could have been in the circus, a tightrope walker.
Some days it feels like a circus, Bill, I must admit.
Right?
No, it is. And honestly, that's when I'm out, like I'm speaking to a Rotary Club this afternoon. I talk about the 3 stools. It's a 3-legged stool that a nonprofit theater stands on. Ticket sales is one of them. But then as a nonprofit, it's really the donations and the corporate sponsorship that is very, very important. And then the other leg of the stool are grants. Without the donations and the sponsorship and the grants, because people often say, why do you have to go out and beg for money? Why can't you just be a business and, make money like everybody else? Well, we could, but our ticket prices would be about $75 a piece. And in this market, I don't think people want to pay $75 a piece. Now, they will if they go up to see a national tour at DPAC or Progress Energy, but regional theater is supposed to be affordable for everyone in the region. So we try really hard, and that's why I go out begging for money. So that sort of subsidizes those ticket prices so that the theater really is of and for the community. It's also why I like to hire local talent. I think it should reflect the community. We have probably 6 or 7 actors from Moore County in Footloose that we're doing now. And people come from all over. I have a kid who drives in from Rayford every day. I have people who are coming from Durham. I have people who are coming from Raleigh, from Cary, from Apex. I have somebody coming from Aberdeen. Because I think as a regional theater and as a hub, it's important to give those people jobs. These are paid jobs. So one of the things that really is important, especially this time of year, are season ticket sales and those donations and corporate sponsorships, which do help us make do, and so we can keep our ticket prices as low as we do.
Yeah. Jacob, for those people who say that New York City has a ton of high energy, they haven't sat at a table with Peggy, have
It's
they?
very true, but you have to remember, Peggy was up in New York with us, so a lot of us in New York have that energy with Peggy.
You mentioned local talent, and you referenced a young lady who was a senior in high school who was in Hamlet.
Yes.
And how did you come to meet her? Did she?
She's one of those kids who kind of grew up at the temple.
Okay, that's what I
She's been
thought.
going through the programs, I think, since she was probably 10 years old, and now she's 17. And that's, honestly, Bill, that's one of my greatest joys. I think that's one of my missions here at the temple, is to nurture and support and mentor these young people who really don't have an outlet any other place. We just had our first Temple Teen rehearsal last night, and that's an ensemble of youth, again, that are coming from all over, probably 6 different counties. And it's an audition-only troupe. We had a 3-hour rehearsal last night, and some of those kids were, trying their best, but we had to teach them 10 songs in 3 hours.
Wow.
Songs and dances.
Right.
So we throw it at them really fast. We treat them like professionals, and then they go out as ambassadors in the community representing the Temple Theater. So here's a shameless plug. If anybody wants the Temple Teens to entertain for your corporate parties, for your civic events, for your church events, just give me a call. They perform free of charge.
Wow.
They do a really high energy half-hour show.
Do they really?
And it's really a great way for these kids to go out. They gain experience. They gain confidence. And become sort of young adults.
Right off the top of my head, as you're talking, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who is a marketing director at Peanut Village.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever had any connection with them.
I
in
haven't,
Southern
but I'd love
Pines.
to.
It's like a college campus in the prettiest part of Southern Pines, and I have a feeling that would lift the spirits of a lot of the residents.
Absolutely.
And I will put you in touch with the marketing director. But you
We
also
have had them at St. Joseph's of the Pines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
so
similar
they come
types
down
of-
here. They performed a couple places down here last year. But yes, the more the merrier. They love it.
I bet.
It's a good experience for them because there's 17 of them. So on any given gig, 14 or 15 of them will show up. So they all have to know all the different parts. They all have to have speaking parts. So it really is a great confidence booster, like I said. And it gets them out and performing, which is what they love to do.
So your legs have a good reach. You have another disciple here in Moore County, Callie Mcentire,
Right.
who I spoke to last week. She was just announced as Moore County's outstanding teen, and she had been on the show this summer prior to a production that she was in. She's a community-minded young lady, a singer, a dancer, very courageous, and a beautiful young lady, and very well spoken, and a role model to a lot of the younger kids in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to her, and we're going to do a show with her in a couple of weeks, so I said, why don't you come in today, because Peggy Taphorn is going to be here from the Temple Theater. She goes, I love Peggy. And she went on and on. I said, well, come on in and witness so you can get used to it. Not that she couldn't handle the 49 minutes. She can.
Absolutely.
So here's what she says. She said, I would love to come, but I have to go to school. I forgot. I said,
happens.
That happens, yeah.
Callie, I forgot all about school. She's a junior, I think, this year.
Right.
How did you know Callie?
Callie came and auditioned.
Okay.
We had auditions in the spring, and she came and auditioned for that. And then she came to the dance callback for Footloose. And I actually cast her in Footloose, but she was unable to do it because she got cast in another show that was closer to home,
Right.
which I totally understand. And like you said, a lot of these kids that are Temple Teens that were in Temple Teen rehearsal last night
Yeah.
on a Monday night are also in Footloose. So we've been in rehearsal with them from 5:30 to 10:30 every night of the week. We had an 8-hour rehearsal on Saturday. We had a 5-hour rehearsal on Sunday. Then they came in on their one night off in this whole process to rehearse for the Temple Teens. So these kids are very committed to their craft, and they also have to keep up with that thing called school, and we're very adamant about that. Like once we get, now that the kids started school, they just started yesterday, we set up long tables in our concession area, and when the kids aren't on stage or being used in rehearsal, we send them there. It's a quiet zone. They have to sit there. They have to do their homework.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important for us that they are well-rounded individuals, and that they really do keep up with their schoolwork as well.
What is it about some of the students who put themselves out there on the line, like Callie, like the young lady who is in Hamlet? what are the common denominators about these kids' character that makes them be willing to put themselves out there on the line?
I think the biggest thing is that they have a self-knowledge, and they are all self-starters.
Right.
You know, because in theater and doing the pageants like Callie does, no one tells you that you have to. You know what I mean?
Right.
It really is a personal choice. And you know that if you make that choice, you're going to have to keep up with your schoolwork. A lot of these kids are also in other things, you know, band or sports or, you know, some other clubs at school. So they have to keep up with all those extracurricular activities. So I think, and that's one of the things that we try to teach. I think it comes from a knowledge of yourself and that you are responsible for yourself.
Right.
And if you want to achieve whatever your end goal is, you have to work really hard. And there's nobody standing behind you giving you gentle nudges. You have to wake up every morning and say, today I have to accomplish X, Y, Z, and I'm going to do it.
Right.
And I think that will serve you well whether you end up in theater as a career or not. You know, in any career, you have the choice, Bill, when you wake up every morning, whether you want to go have coffee on the porch or whether you want to get to work and get on that phone. You know what I mean? And that's one of the skills I think that we teach these young people.
Yeah, I admire, Jacob, the self-esteem that these kids bring to the table, and the courage. And then as they perform, their self-esteem grows.
Absolutely.
And their confidence grows. Like in Callie's case, it's in her DNA.
Absolutely.
I just sense it when I'm around her.
Right, but a lot of these kids don't start like that.
Okay.
And that's one of the neat things to watch.
To how they develop.
Yeah. For example, we have several people, and Sydney Pope, who just played Hamlet, is one of them, who, when she came to us, was kind of the shy kid who didn't really have a place. You know what I mean? And now last night she was teaching some of the choreography. You know what I mean? It gives them a sense of empowerment, and it gives them a place where it's a very safe space where they can explore and fail and succeed, and which is part of life. You know, you have to, if you don't ever fail, if there's something you're not good at that you have to work at pretty hard to get good at,
Right.
that's the best gift you can give a kid, I think.
Yeah, the Temple Theater serves a couple of very important roles. There's the educational piece, there's a developmental piece, and then, of course, there's the production piece, which we're going to come back in the second set, and we're going to start. I want to talk about some of these productions. And Dorothy, I love that song we opened with. I'd love to close with it this set, and we'll be back in a minute. This is All Things Moore County. Welcome back to the second set. I don't want to talk. I just want to listen to the music of Footloose. That song.
It's energizing, isn't it?
Completely. Every time I've seen the movie, and I've watched it a lot, you can't help but tap your feet. I can envision that the show is going to break out into dance.
It opens with dance and it keeps going the whole time.
But even in the in the audience, people are going to be hand clapping and foot stomping.
It's definitely a toe tapping musical.
It is. What was it about Footloose at the time it was made? I mean, John Lithgow was a great actor.
He was fantastic.
Kevin Bacon they owned the show, the two of them. How did you come to select Footloose for your opening show?
Well, we did it in 2008. I think I mentioned that earlier. And it was one of the audience favorites. I think a new movie has come out, a new version that the kids know.
Right.
That I then had to go watch. Because they kept talking about these people I'd never heard of. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's Kevin Bacon. They're like, no, it's this new, I still don't know his name.
Right.
I don't know him, but Julianne Hough from Dancing with the Stars fame plays the girl.
Plays Ariel, right. So I went back and watched it, and it's just as much fun. It really is. And I think it's just a classic story.
Right.
And the music is so infectious. Of course, I'm an 80s girl, so that is my era. I think all the tunes, Let's Hear It for the Boy,
right.
Footloose, Almost Paradise. I mean, they are all great, great songs.
Right.
So just the music alone for me just makes me smile, makes me happy. And then it's an opportunity to use. We have generated all of these great young people. And a lot of our kids are seniors this year. And so I thought, what a great gift to them. And like I said, we have kids coming from all over. At the audition, we had over 80 kids show up just for the teen audition. And so I really put them through a pretty rigorous singing, dancing, acting audition. And we've double cast the show so that I could use even more teens. So it really has been a great experience. It takes Jacob and I a little bit longer because you have to teach everything twice.
2 casts, yeah.
But it's great to see how they all kind of jump in, and when they're not up on stage, when their cast is not on stage, they're in the aisles dancing it out. They really work well with each other and helping each other, and it's a great experience. But just Footloose itself, I think you can't not like that show. And it has a wonderful message. Again, it's very powerful. There's a girl power message in there. There's a be true to yourself message in there.
Coming of age message.
There's a coming of age message. And also for Reverend Shaw, he as an adult also learns that he can change his mind. And he can admit fault. And he can grow as a human being.
The Lithgow character.
That's right. So there really is something for all of us, a positive message in there that's wrapped in all these great 80 songs. So that was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Where do you get 80 teens?
They come from all over. I just wrote a grant, and one of the things I was really proud of is that we have audience members and participants in Temple programs that come from 61 counties in North Carolina. So they really do. They come from all over. I think we have sort of garnered the reputation of being a great place to work and a great place to challenge yourself. And so people want to be a part of that.
Wow. There are 100 counties in North Carolina, so your reach is pretty far-reaching.
Right. And we actually have audience members that come from Virginia and South Carolina as well. So now if we can only get more people from Lee County and Moore County to come, we will be a success.
Callie has got to be on your radar screen going forward.
Right.
And now she's going to have an integral role in, I guess, a lot of things in the community. I'm sorry that she couldn't be here.
I am too. But again, we do have, several of our leads are from Moore County.
Right.
And they all carpool up there.
Right.
And it's great. And the parents are obviously also have to be committed. Now some of these kids are old enough to drive, which is a scary thought in itself. But for the ones who aren't, their parents have to come to Sanford, which is for some of them is an over an hour drive, sit there while we do a 5-hour rehearsal, then drive back at 10:30 at night, get up, go to work the next morning. So it really is sort of a family commitment, and I really do try to respect their time and the energy that the whole family has to put into it. So
imagine parents who are so willing to commit their time to their child's development, where they stand back and let the child work it out on their own and learn on their own, as opposed to the helicopter parent mentality, where the kids get a standing ovation for a sixth-place finish something.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's the funny thing we always talk about with this musical, because Peggy and I grew up in that generation of Footloose and having parents that
really didn't care.
Let us go and do what we did. And didn't ask any questions and didn't really know where we were or what we were doing. And so being in the theater, you kind of have to be that parent. It's hard to be a helicopter parent and be in the theater world.
Right. They have to stand out on their own, and they learn courage at a young age.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that will translate. You can just spot it in a kid that's a self-starter or that wants to self-generate. And those are the kids who make eye contact. Those are the kids who are standing there, and they're always very present. They're not hiding out.
And if they want to be in the theater, they need to learn how to do that, because as Peggy was saying, when you get to New York City, no one wakes you up every day and says you have to go to this audition.
Yeah,
if
and
you
Broadway
don't go to an
doesn't
audition,
come and knock on your apartment door and say, it's your day. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Wow, that's great. Footloose is going to, how many shows? You're going to have the 14th
We do
of
3
September?
weeks.
3 weeks?
This year, the schedule's a little bit different. We now do matinees on Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays at 2 p.m. And then we now do Friday and Saturday nights at 7:30. It was one of the things the audience asked for was an earlier start time.
Right.
Which is kind of great for the local restaurants. As I mentioned, the Steel Pig is doing the food for the Footloose opening night.
Right.
It's also staying open after the shows, because now the shows will be over by 9:30, so people can go have a dessert, have a coffee, have a cocktail and a snack,
Right.
and then head home. So I think the restaurants are going to see a little push from that. And for people who do need to get up, early, then they'll be home by 10 o'clock, and it's a lot easier on people than getting out of the show at 10 o'clock. So those are our new times: 2 o'clock on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, and then 7:30 on Friday night and Saturday night. And most of our shows run for 3 weeks. This year we're ending our wonderful Pegiversary season with Beauty and the Beast, and because we're anticipating that one being so popular, we're actually running that one for 4 weeks. But the
Right.
rest of the shows run 3 weeks.
And anybody can go onto your website, templeshows.com, to look at your lineup.
Right.
It's impressive. And you also, in addition to the shows, you also have a lot of specials
Right.
that are not necessarily, they might be one-night events. The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Right. We
the
just had a
comedian-
huge hit with that. That was a lot of fun.
Right.
We just had the Cool Country Comedy. That was this past weekend, and those 3 gals did a great job, and they want to come back. They have a big presence on Sirius Radio, and so they had a wonderful time, and so they definitely want to come back. We just announced that we have Henry Cho coming in the spring. He's going to sell out in 5 minutes, I think. So if you're a Henry Cho fan, you need to get your tickets. We're also doing a fundraiser, speaking of Callie Mcentire. I know she's a pageant girl, and
Yeah.
we are doing on October 7th a big joint fundraiser with the Miss North Carolina Scholarship Foundation. And we are going to have 5 or 6 past Miss North Carolinas.
Oh,
We're
wow.
going to have a lot of our talent from the Temple come together for a black tie event. And that's one of the fundraisers that we're doing this year, which is one of the way the Temple stays alive. But the proceeds will be split between the North Carolina Scholarship Foundation and the Temple Theater Academy classes so that we can offer scholarships for that. And again, I think that's going to be a great night of music, and there's going to be dance. We're going to have a live trio on stage. I have a woman coming from Greensboro who's going to sing some Patsy Cline. I have several men coming from Moore County who are going to be singing, as well as our past Miss North Carolina. So again, mark your calendars, get out your tuxedo and your fancy gown, and come and join us for that one.
That's October the 7th.
Yes.
And you have it in here as a 50th anniversary Neil Diamond tribute?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we also have Heart of Carolina Jazz Society is coming. The Embers are coming back for their Christmas show. People love that. That one always sells out.
Right.
Sweet Potato Pie is coming back for their Christmas show. People
Right.
love them. They always sell out. Tommy Edwards and the Bluegrass Experience. If you haven't kicked off your New Year's Eve with Tommy Edwards, you are missing out because it is a really fun night. You're still home. It's one of my favorite ways to celebrate because you get home by midnight. You can put your jammies on, watch the ball drop, do one more toast, and go to bed. And then again in the spring, we're having James Gregory is coming back. We have Henry Cho coming back. So, yeah, in addition to our 7 shows, we do all these special weekend shows as well.
Yeah.
And honestly, Bill, I just tried to book another act, and we are full from now until June. We don't have a weekend that's free.
Is that right?
If you're looking for something to do, like you said, go to our website, templeshows.com, and you will find something to do.
You know, you mentioned earlier in the first set about ticket prices that you don't have to charge $75 because you're running as a nonprofit. Your adult ticket prices are $27.
Right.
That's crazy. I mean, that's really crazy. You have group ticket sales, student ticket prices, and military and education or educator prices as
Right.
well.
Yeah, active military, educators, and group tickets are 20% off. So then your tickets really are only $23.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, and I really
great.
do want theater to be available to everybody. Our student ticket price, I believe, is $14. And then throughout the year, for every show, we do at least one. Sometimes we do, like for Christmas Carol, I know we're doing, I think, 11 student matinees. That ticket price is only $7. So
There was a production in Moore County, will go unnamed at this point. It was held earlier this year, and the ticket prices were in the $40 range and up. And I heard more people complaining about the prices. So to be in the 20s as opposed to the 40s is a huge difference.
right.
Absolutely. And the fact that Peggy's bringing people in from New York City to be in these shows.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the talent that is here locally as well as New York talent for $27 is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. This is her 10th season, but the theater's 34th
Yep.
And the building itself goes back to 1925.
Right.
So you have you're sort of guiding over or shepherding the building and the theater to a different generation.
Right. It
Keeping
started
it
out. It was
alive.
built as a vaudeville theater.
Right.
And I really wish we had better records from those days. I know that the MGM Lion set paw on the stage. I know that one of Charlie Chaplin's wives was on the stage.
Wow.
I'm sure there are many more famous people that we would recognize from vaudeville and burlesque. And then it became a movie house for generations. A lot of people in Sanford remember it as a movie theater. And then it fell into disrepair in the 70s. And then what we celebrate now is that in the early 80s, the community got together and it pitched in and got some grant money and refurbished it. And it's been refurbished again since then. Like, I think about 12 years ago, it had another major renovation. Yeah. And we try to do a big upgrade every year. Just to kind of keep this beautiful gem going.
For any Moore County residents that are listening, if you've not been to the Temple Theater, it's really an organic experience. It's like walking back into yesteryear, and there's a big desire and a big move for a lot of people to recapture periods of time of times past right here in Moore County. It's a quick drive. The acoustics are great. It's a very intimate theater, and I can tell you firsthand, it's impossible to get a bad seat. It's people walk in and they go, oh my, it's not anywhere near as big as people think.
Exactly. Well, we have 240 seats in the orchestra section, and then 100 seats in the balcony.
Right.
So really, every seat is, like you said, has a great view of the stage.
Right.
It feels very intimate.
Right.
Because it was built as a vaudeville theater back in those days. There was no sound system, so it's acoustically sound because it was built that way with a tin ceiling. And it really is a wonderful way to be involved in theater, which is what I think live theater offers that no other kind of entertainment offers. The audience is 50% of that equation.
Yeah, it's a very energizing place to go. We're going to come back. We're talking all about the Temple Theater with Peggy Taphorn and Jacob Toth. We'll be back in a minute. Back to our third set, and again, if you're living under that same rock, if you didn't know, that was music from Beauty and the Beast, which will be your final show of 7 in April the 19th through the 13th of May. You get 7 very well-known productions. I'd love to hear your synopsis. We've talked about Footloose.
Yes. Following Footloose, we're doing a new show to this area. It's called Clue the Musical, which is based on the popular board game and the movie that starred Tim Curry. Oh, yeah. I think the cool thing about that one is that it's going to be very challenging for our actors because the audience, one of the audience members when they come in gets to pick who done it with what in what area. So then the actors, only the narrator of the show knows those 3 things. So by the clues that he tells them, they have to figure out and adjust their script so that they know who did it. And then there's a twist at the end, no matter who the audience picks, which is pretty funny. So I'm really excited about that. Again, we have some great regional talent and some New York talent coming in for that one. I actually have also an actor coming in from South Carolina, but I think the audience participation aspect is going to be really fun and challenging for the actors as well.
Right.
And then we're bringing back our fabulous original adaptation of A Christmas Carol, and that runs November 29th through December 17th. That has wonderful, it's a very uplifting version of Christmas Carol, and I actually ended up commissioning that because I went around and saw 6 or 7 different versions of Christmas Carol and read a few, and I didn't find one that I thought actually was joyful enough. So I commissioned my friend Michael Hoagland, who lives in New York, to write some original music, and we put in some traditional Christmas carols, but it's very true to the story, and it's a wonderful way. Again, we have a cast of thousands. This one is triple cast with kids. And that's the one where we do so many student matinees. It's a great way to spend a couple of hours during the holidays. And this is the third year we're doing this one in a row. Then we'll put that one on the shelf for a few years.
Right.
So if you haven't come to Christmas Carol, now's your chance. Then in January, Jason Petty has been a big superstar at the Temple, really. I met him when I was back in New York and saw him do a Hank Williams show on Broadway, Lost Highway. He and I became friends. He now lives in Nashville. He writes his own shows and goes around the country and actually the world doing these shows. And he did Classic Nashville Roadshow with my other good friend, Katie Deal, who has, again, traveled the world playing Patsy Cline. The two of them combined their talent and their energy and wrote this show called Classic Nashville Roadshow, which features a lot of the great duets of classic radio country songs. And it was such a huge hit. They actually recorded their CD for that show at the Temple Theater. They are coming back in January to do the world premiere of Classic Nashville Roadshow Part 2, the sequel, where once again they're going to do all these great duets from, Johnny and June all the way up to, contemporary country artists. They bring a 5-piece band from Nashville with them, and they just fill that place. And I think one of Katie and Jason's talents, other than being great singers and instrumentalists, is they're also good actors and they're good storytellers. So they tell a little bit about the people who made these songs famous, why they became famous, a little bit of the gossip story behind these songs, and it's really a fun night. Then in February, we are bringing back, this was the #1 play pick of my 10 years.
Neil Simon.
Exactly, The Odd Couple. And we do a little twist with this one, and I do have the original actors are coming back. Michael Brockie and Steve Moore, who were Felix and Oscar the last time we did the show, are coming back. And the twist is that every other day they switch roles. So one day they'll be Felix, the next day they'll be Oscar. And we had many members of the audience came back. They're like, I can't imagine them switching roles. So they would come back and see the show twice to see how it played both ways. And they're both fabulous actors. Again, it's a great way to have a couple laughs.
Neil Simon, one of the most memorable playwriters. He captures the living condition.
That's right.
She did Chapter 2 with Marcia Mason and James Conn. And it was that was a true story about his own life. But in The Odd Couple, everything he recreates becomes so real, and people just have a very high relatedness to his writing.
I think we all have a little bit of Oscar and a little bit of Felix in us.
The Odd Couple's great. Wow.
Yeah, that's, I think, going to be a big audience favorite. And then I've been trying to get the Church Basement Ladies at the Temple for about 3 years now. And again, they tour all over the United States, but I finally got the rights. And so we're going to produce that on March 8th through March 25th. And it's set in Minnesota in a Lutheran church. But again, it's recognizable to any member of any church. In fact, I did a little research, and they premiered the show in a Catholic community just to see if the jokes would play. And it's just as funny whether you're Lutheran, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, Catholic, Jewish, whatever you happen to be, you can relate. Because as we all know, the church is run by those ladies in the basement who cook the food, who serve the food, who clean the areas.
They set the tone and tenor.
Exactly. Those ladies really kind of, are the power behind the throne. And again, very recognizable characters. It's 4 women and then the minister. It's very funny. Again, I think you can find something recognizable in these ladies that you can relate to. And they're very heartfelt. It's original music, and it's just a lot of laughs.
I get a sense that there's a touch of Steel Magnolias in there with the ladies in the beauty
Yes, there's
salon.
A little Steel Magnolias. There's a little nonsense.
Okay.
It's more kind of, they not make fun of themselves, but you can find the humor in their situations. They go through an Easter, they go through a Christmas, they go through a wedding, they go through, all of these great holidays in the course of their year down in the church basement. And it's really, again, that time of year for me, from January through March, it's the winter months. It gets dark so early.
Right.
I really want people to come into the temple, have a few laughs, forget the weather,
lighten up,
forget the life, going on around them, and just have a good time for a little bit. So that's why I try to program some happy uplifting things in those time slots. And then we are going to end with the blockbuster Beauty and the Beast. I'm not sure how we're going to fit all those characters on our little stage, but it is going to be fantastic. We've already started having production meetings about how we're going to do just that, where we're going to get the costumes, how we're going to build the set so that it all transitions smoothly. And again, I think it's going to be like when we did Cats. People are like, oh, we've seen Beauty and the Beast. We've seen Cats. You haven't seen it like we're going to do it because you're part of it.
Right.
You know, to see a show like this, they just did an NCT on that big giant stage, and nothing against that. It was a beautiful production. Ours will just be, you know, much more intimate. And I think the love story will come through a little bit more. I think that you will get the humor a little bit more because you're up close and personal. And I just can't wait. You know, children of all ages and those of us who are still young at heart, I think are going to love Beauty and the Beast.
You know, today more than ever, in our internet world, live theater is almost antithetical to the way we get information and the way we don't sit and share with people.
Right.
But when you walk into the Temple Theater, you're seeing people you know. Peggy is generally up on the stage to introduce the show, to say hello to everybody, to meet and greet. You look like a candidate running for office in that beautiful lobby. She knows everybody. But there's something, there's a quality about sharing in live theater that people don't get when they're sitting at home on their computer plugging in YouTube.
That's right.
To watch something or to see it on Facebook.
Right. Well, again, I like to say, and a lot of artistic directors say this phrase, you know, lean forward and enjoy as opposed to sit back and enjoy. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
the audience, like I mentioned, is 50% of the equation. When we have, you know, a dud audience, frankly, the actors feel that and they feed off that. But if you have an audience that's with you, that's laughing, that's clapping, that you can tell is actively participating, oh man, there is nothing better than that feeling as an actor and as an audience member. You know, you can go sit in the theater and keep your hands on your lap and, you know, just watch it happen as if you're watching TV. But if you engage even slightly, I guarantee you're going to get hooked.
Right.
And you're going to feel something.
Right.
Which is what live theater is supposed to do.
Right.
As opposed to reacting to something, you're actually actively participating. And I think that's what live theater has. And that's why I think live theater, you know, there's talk these days, you know, what's going to be the next generation of live theater? Is it going to be, you know, animatrons? Is it going to be 3D, CG projections? I think there's always going to be the human element, because since we were sitting around the fire as cavemen telling stories, everybody needs that sense of community. And as, you know, for some people, that's the only way they connect with community. For those who don't attend sporting events as a group or don't attend church as a group, theater is one way, another way that community can come together, actively participate, and it asks you to give something of yourself, which and then you get back. So I think there will always be a place in that for us as human beings.
It's shared experience resonates a whole lot more than an individual experience, and
Right.
that's what live theater
Well,
does.
and that's why I think now season tickets are on sale, and one of the great things about our season tickets is that they're flexible pass. So let's say, Bill, you have your sisters come in
Yep.
for a show. You can buy a 7 pass now. You can use all 7 of those tickets for one show and save 20%. And I think as adults these days, we all have everything we need. Come on.
Yeah.
If you want something, you go out and buy it.
Right.
But the gift of an event
Uh-huh.
is something that you will have those memories for the rest of your life.
Right.
So, you know, get everybody tickets to see Christmas Carol. Bring Grandma. Bring Uncle Fritz, who sits at home by himself every night. You know, bring your girls group. Bring some friends. Make an event. That's the best gift that you can give people, I think.
She's right. One of my sisters said, "Oh, I'm going to come down and visit you before Christmas." And I said, "You promise?" She goes, "I promise. If we go to a show, it'll be a memory."
That's right.
That's
Absolutely.
right. And it's something we'll be able to share. And so if that happens, I'm bringing her.
Right.
Whatever
And
the
talk
show
about,
is.
You know, it's one of the things,
Yeah.
again, we're kind of losing as human beings.
Right.
Is the ability to have a conversation.
Right.
Our power went out last night. And, you know, you would have thought it was the end of the world because you actually have to talk. There's nothing else to do. You can't turn on the tube. You can't turn on your phone because there's no internet. You actually have to communicate and be an interesting human being.
Do you know this past weekend in New York, I'm standing on the corner of 72nd and Columbus. People are standing there, and everyone's on their phone. It's
Absolutely.
the Starbucks. Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
They're their own little world in a community gathering.
Right. Touching each other basically in New York.
Crazy. That's exactly right.
In a city of 12 million people.
It's crazy.
And they don't even look at one another.
They don't even look at one another.
And the funny thing
right.
is that I was in London. I was doing Showboat in
They
London.
talk to their dog more than they talk
Yeah.
to other
That's true.
people.
And that was just when cell phones happened. So it was 98.
Okay.
And cell phones weren't a thing, if you can imagine.
That's right.
That far back.
That's right.
In our, evolution where nobody had a cell phone. And we went to a restaurant, some of the cast members, after a performance, and there was a couple sitting there, and the woman was on her phone the entire time. And we all looked at her and said, "Oh, that'll never happen. That'll never happen in America. That's
Yeah.
never going to happen to me."
It's happening.
It happens
Every day.
Every day, every moment of every day. It's kind of an interesting thing, which again brings me back to the necessity of live theater.
And I think I remember you talking about cell phones at the theater, and
Right.
there's a very cute way that you have to instruct people how to, please turn them off.
Right.
They're not allowed.
Exactly. Well, and I think that we can all, unless you're on call as a neurosurgeon or something,
Right.
you can take an hour and 45 minutes out of your evening and not be plugged in
Right.
and tune into something that might just change your life.
Go online to the templeshows.com. You can look at the 2017-2018 lineup. All the information about season tickets, the Temple Theater special events, the Temple Education program, the Temple Academy, the Temple Teen Ensemble, the summer camps. You guys do so much for the youth and to try to keep a tradition alive.
Right, and academy classes are starting in September. We let the kids get acclimated at school for a couple of weeks, and then we start our academy classes. And those run for 8 weeks. And again, it's one night a week. We have classes on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. But each class only meets one of those nights for an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's a great way to get your kids involved, to get their foot in the door, see if they like it, teach some necessary kind of life skills. And that's for all ages. We have all ages of kids, and they're done by age group. Again, those start in September. Season tickets are on sale through October 1st. And if you would like to be a donor or a corporate sponsor, all of that information is also on the website.
Yeah.
And also in our season brochure.
Yeah. And you've got a pledge card in your brochure, which we're going to have at our office. And if there's a way we can help distribute them in Moore County. There's so many kids here with the talk of the arts being underfunded in
Right.
the school system. There's still the need. There's still the requirement to get kids exposed to the arts.
Right.
And,
And
you
we
know,
don't turn any kid away. We offer scholarships. If their parents are willing to get them there, they're in the class or they're in the show. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Jacob, you're here for Footloose? And
I'm
then
here
you're,
for Footloose
Then you're
and-
back to New York?
Back to New York and on to the next thing, but I'm sure I will be back to help out Peggy again at the Temple Theater. It's like a second home for me. I've been coming down here for 6 years.
Right.
And always love to work with the people down here.
Right. Well, you, as a director, as a choreographer, also, you will create indelible impressions for the kids that you're mentoring. Even though you're here part-time right now, those kids will not forget the coaching.
There's no chance they will forget. Jacob screaming at them, "Do it again!" And he will be back for Beauty and the Beast. We know that.
Okay. Well, that's
So-
good to say. If you are, you can come back and visit with us again.
Absolutely. I would love that.
And Peggy, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, Bill. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
We'll be talking about you in a couple of weeks when Callie comes on.
Absolutely.
I just
and come
know
and
we
see
will.
these great Moore County teenagers and adults. I actually have some adults coming from Moore County as well in Footloose. I think you're going to be blown away.
Temple Theater's Peggy's 10th season. It kicks off with Footloose on September the 14th, which is a Thursday, and runs through October the 1st. Get over there if you haven't been there, and if you've been, I know you'll be back. Wish you the best of luck with your upcoming
Thank
season.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, have a great week.
Your dinner. Be our guest, be our guest. Put our service to the test. Tie your napkin round your neck, Sherry, and we'll provide the rest. Soup du jour, hot hors d'oeuvre. Why, we only live to serve. Try the gray stuff, it's delicious. Don't believe me? Ask the dishes.